The aroma of roasted chicken wafted through the air, mingling with the soft crackling of the fireplace. It was family dinner night, and the dining table gleamed with polished silverware and fine china, remnants of our family's long-held traditions. My heart constricted at the sight of the extravagant spread. It was always about appearances, wasn't it? A show meant to hide the simmering cracks beneath our picture-perfect facade. I adjusted my chair, the legs squeaking a reminder of how often this same scenario played out. Everyone gather around the table. My mother's voice rang with a practiced cheer, as though a layer of undeniable tension did not hang in the room like an unwelcome guest. I glanced at my brother, who was scrolling through his phone, perhaps trying to escape this world we inhabited, even momentarily. My sister sat opposite him, rolling her eyes at our mother's persistent insistence. I felt an unsettling twist in my gut. Each dinner, each forced smile was another layer of distress added to our family dynamic. "Are we ready for the big news?" my mother asked with an overly bright smile, glancing at me with that look that always said, "Smile, act happy." She wanted normalcy, but normalcy was a ghost in our family. I met her gaze, forcing a small nod, but it hardly felt genuine. I could sense my father's anticipation. He leaned forward, eyes flickering with unmasked excitement. "What is it this time, Mom?" My brother's tone dripped with casual disinterest, but I knew he could feel the tension bubbling just like I could. I wanted nothing more than to ignore the looming confrontation I felt swirling like a storm overhead. "It's a surprise," my mother insisted, glancing again towards my father, who cleared his throat, ready to take the stage. "Your grandfather has decided to update the family will." Her words made me freeze. Given our family's history with money, especially with our grandfather's considerable wealth, every chance for inheritance turned into a battlefield. I could hear the faint crackle of the fire, each pop echoing the anxiety in my chest. Why this sudden announcement now? What did she mean? Was this just another tactic of favoritism? I could feel my heart racing, the room starting to feel smaller with each passing second. With an almost theatrical flair, my father gestured for silence. "As you know, your grandfather is not well. He wants to ensure his legacy is clear." My mother nodded vigorously, her eyes flashing as if she could sense the brewing storm. "And to do that, he has decided to divide the estate differently this time." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Thoughts surfaced like angry tidal waves. What did differently mean? I could feel my hands shaking as I prepared for the inevitable fallout, the rehashing of family grievances, the whispers behind each one of our names like burrs in the back of my mind. Just last week, I had overheard snippets of conversation where my grandfather voiced his dissatisfaction with how we mismanaged family funds. My throat tightened. "What do you mean by differently?" My sister's voice broke into the tension, sharper than a knife. I appreciated her defiance. It felt like a small alliance in against the tidal wave of uncertainty crashing over us. My mother sighed heavily, sounding almost resentful. "He will be including specific guidelines, deeming certain traits and responsibilities as prerequisites. It's only fair," she insisted, each word measured and careful. "If you do not fulfill them, there will be consequences." "Consequences?" my brother scoffed, rolling his eyes again. "What does that even mean?" He glanced at me, a flicker of shared annoyance passing between us. I could feel my heart racing. What if we were deemed unworthy in his eyes? What if all the nurtured grievances turned against us? What if I was no longer the favored daughter? "Let's not jump to conclusions," my father interjected, trying to restore calm. "It is going to be a family meeting where your grandfather outlines everything. He wants unity." "Unity?" my sister echoed incredulously, the flavor of bitterness in her voice. "Is this just his way of making sure he keeps control over everyone?" She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms defiantly, and I admired her strength against our parents' Spain-built facade of family harmony. I couldn't look away. I felt drawn into the chaos like a moth to the flame. I had spent years feeling invisible, always coming second to my brother, who soaked up the praise, and my sister, who was always unapologetically herself. They were everything I wasn't: confident, loud, and demanding attention. I was just the quiet one left in the shadows, always waiting for my moment, but no one ever seemed to notice. "Your grandfather has his reasons," my father insisted, voice steady but clipped. "He feels he needs to reward those who show initiative. Remember who we're talking about. He built this family's fortune from nothing." The fervor in his voice rose as though he was trying to invoke the spirit of the man rather than sway his children. But I was angry that these riches had become chains rather than blessings. The whispers of heritage felt tainted when colored by greed. The tension in the room shifted as my brother leaned back, smirking slightly. "So what's next? Will we have to audition for the fortune? Some kind of family talent show?" His sarcasm cut through the silence like a blade, igniting frustrated laughter from my sister, yet landing like a lead weight on me. His careless joke echoed the dark fears tumbling in my mind. "Not funny," my mother snapped, drawing the attention back to her. The air felt electric now, like a storm ready to break. "This is serious. Your grandfather has worked too hard to have his legacy squandered. We need to show him that we're worthy of it." I felt my stomach churn at the emphasis on worthiness. This was exactly how old wounds were reopened, slashing deeper than they had before. Worthy? What do you mean by that? I found my own voice as it came out firm, tracing the lines of tension on the faces around me. What if you all feel I don't measure up? You've always favored my brother. What if I am punished just for being me? The weight of my vulnerability hit fiercely, exaggerating the silence that followed. I could feel all eyes on me, my mother's gaze trembling with annoyance, my father's expression drawn in contemplation, and my siblings shifting uncomfortably in their chairs. You're being dramatic. My sister said sharply, this isn't about some childhood games, this is our family's future we're talking about. That's what you say? I shot back, feeling my courage swell. But what do you think all this is really about? I expected an eruption of anger or even shared laughter, but instead there was a heavy pause, a hesitation. My heart raced faster, almost like it was daring for a confrontation. This wasn't just about money or property, this was about respect, love, something that had long flown out the window. With the right actions, anyone can earn their place, my mother interjected, cutting through the stifling silence. You can do better if you put your heart into it. Your grandfather has outlined specific expectations for each of you. Her voice was sharper than a knife, slicing through the air of suspended disbelief. Expectations. I could feel my palms becoming clammy, the words burrowing under my skin. What expectations? The pressure felt like a vice tightening around my chest, the suffocating fear rising. Like what? I found myself demanding, leaning forward with unexpected fierceness. What have I ever not done right? You've never said anything. I've just been sitting here waiting for the approval that never comes. The vulnerability in my voice echoed back at me, louder than I intended. I saw my mother flinch slightly, a crack forming in her mask. My voice cracked again as I continued. What will you do if all this proves I'm just as invisible to him as I am to you? No one is invisible in this family. My mother snapped, but the way she clenched her jaw told me otherwise. I caught my sister's expression, a mixture of sympathy and realization. The battle lines were drawn, and I could feel the tension palpably thick around us. This isn't just about storage heirlooms or fancy titles. My sister added, softer now, the fighter within her manifesting with a steely determination. Our grandfather has always chosen who would succeed based on how they'd contribute. That is how it works in wealthy families. A churning anger and frustration boiled inside me. So I am suddenly supposed to pull tricks out of a hat? I countered, voice rising. What if I don't want anything to do with this family's twisted legacy? Something is terribly wrong when we divide love like it is just meals being served at the table. Then you risk losing everything. My mother's sharp reply hit like a brick against the wall, driving me back against my chair. I felt my chest tight, as though the walls of our home were closing in on me, trapping me in the chaos of voices and accusations. Then maybe I really should think about cutting off ties, I blurted, the words erupting before I could stop them. Silence enveloped the room like a heavy blanket as I glanced up and met their eyes, all their expressions painted with shocked disbelief. Are you serious? My brother finally laughed, though there was an undercurrent of alarm in his tone. You think you can just walk away? This is family. I held his gaze, fists clenched. Maybe that's exactly what I need, I replied, the defiance filling my voice with newfound conviction. A chill ran through the air around me, electrifying the palpable frustration that had gathered. My mother finally let out a shaky breath, her expression softening yet still laced with confusion. You might face severe repercussions, she whispered, the undercurrent of worry palpable in the space between us. Instinctively, I knew this was my moment. The decision hung in the air as my heart raced, caught between a past steeped in hurt and a future filled with uncertainty. Maybe this family is the real burden, I challenged quietly, the truth finally dawning on me, the liberation of revelation coursing through my veins like adrenaline. My brother abruptly climbed to his feet, frustration evident in his tense posture. You have no idea what you're talking about, he barked, and as he stormed from the room, he slammed the door behind him with a resounding crash that echoed through the house like a death knell. And just like that, everything changed. Stunned silence enveloped us. An invisible barrier hung like a weight, separating my outrage from my family's turmoil. I felt both relieved and terrified. The tension had escalated to a new height, and beneath the surface, a volcano of unresolved issues was ready to explode. I could hear the distant crackling of the logs in the fireplace, no longer a comforting sound, but a reminder of the warped familial bonds that tied us together. In that moment, staring at the closed door, I realized the battle lines had been drawn. I could feel something deep within me shifting. It was a strange blend of anticipation and dread, a feeling I would soon come to know all too well. I stood in the living room of our old house, the scent of musty books and overcooked spaghetti still clinging to the air like an unwanted guest. My heart raced as I replayed the events of earlier that day in my mind, each point like a dagger stabbing at my determination. The worn beige walls had witnessed so much history, yet today felt different. Today, they felt like my prison. It had been hours since I overheard my brother and sister in a whispering huddle in the kitchen, their laughter ringing out like nails scratching a chalkboard, making me feel like I was intruding on a private joke. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, the tension building in every fiber of my being as I tried to block out the naivete of their smug secrets. A few moments later, the front door swung open and my mother walked in, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. "Dinner is almost ready," she called, her voice energetically slicing through the thick atmosphere. I couldn't muster a response, my throat felt tight. She didn't notice the storm brewing inside me, so I watched her, stepping forward with an air of domesticity, oblivious to the discontent encroaching on what had once felt like a safe haven. My mother had always preferred keeping the peace, avoiding confrontation at all costs. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" she asked, catching my gaze. "Nothing," I said too quickly, feeling the familiar flush creep into my cheeks. Who was I kidding, her brow knit together slightly, concern beginning to shadow her features. "You know you can talk to me, right?" She reached out, laying her hand on my shoulder. I felt the warmth of her skin seep through my shirt, but it only made me feel more trapped. Did she really want to know, or was that just another line she fed me? I tried to swallow to find the right words, but instead I found the taste of bitterness rising in the back of my throat. "I just heard something earlier," I said, unable to protect my tone from revealing the hurt and confusion buried deep within. "I don't know if you noticed." "Noticed what?" my mother pressed. Just then my sister and brother tumbled into the room, the two of them sharing a glance that sparked a fury in my chest. It was the kind of glance that spoke volumes, a silent agreement that I, as the oldest sibling, was somehow forgotten. I could still hear their whispered words echoing in my mind, mocking me as they discussed the inheritance I had been so desperate to claim. "There you are," my brother announced with feigned enthusiasm as he sidled up to my mother, embellishing his smile as if nothing existed outside of their cozy universe. "We were just talking about how we're going to split up the family assets. You know, after everything, Mom, do you think we should get that real estate appraiser in here this week?" He shifted, a glint of mischief sparking in his eyes as he focused on me. "Unless you want to pretend that none of this matters." "I heard you talking," I said, my voice shaking slightly as I took a step toward them, almost feeling like flames licking at the back of my mind. "What do you mean, split up the family assets?" "Relax," my sister chimed in, waving her hand dismissively as if she were brushing away a fly. "We were just having a little planning session, making sure we are all on the same page once Mom and Dad officially transfer everything over." My pulse quickened, beating heavily against my chest. I felt the weight of their casual dismissal like 1,000 tons pressing down on me. "You really think it's fair to just cut me out of everything?" "There you go again with the drama," my brother said, smirking. "We're just being realistic, you know how it is. Family first, but you got to think about what's practical. You barely contributed to anything around here, and let's be honest, who really wants that old sofa with the scratch on it anyway? You'll thank us when you see how much we're planning to sell it for." "Why do you both keep saying that? I have just as much right to our parents' inheritance as you do." I blurted out, trying to push against the rising anger threatening to spill over. I couldn't let them brush me aside again, like a piece of trash they could toss out without a second thought. My mother glanced between the three of us, her face pale, eyebrows knitting tightly above her wide eyes. "Can we not do this now? This isn't the time or place. Our family is still mourning, and bickering about money is not what your father would want." "Not about money," my brother laughed, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "That is the entire purpose of this meeting, isn't it? This was Dad's sanctuary. I mean, he is rolling over in his grave right now just thinking about it." I couldn't believe my ears. How could they be so cruel, so heartless? I wanted to scream, to shake them until they understood the devastating implications of their words. Our father had passed away just months ago, and here they were, wielding his legacy like a weapon. I felt my hands start to tremble, a chill racing down my spine. "I cannot believe you two don't see how unfair this is," I said, my voice barely above a whisper even as I tried to mask my raging storm beneath the surface. "You are completely excluding me. Why not send me an invitation to your little planning party?" "Tighten your dreams, sister," my brother shot back, crossing his arms condescendingly. "Equitable distribution means we get what we worked for, while you chose to move 3 states away and just forget about us all. Do you even know how much this house is worth now? What's your point? It still belongs to our family," I shouted, frustration boiling inside me. I wanted to tell them how I had spent countless hours helping our parents through every bit of pain and trouble, how I sacrificed time and opportunities for them. Did they think they could just erase those memories? "You both just want the best for yourselves?" "Wait," my sister interjected, her eyes narrowing like she had just figured out a puzzle I had overlooked. "You're not mad because you think we are planning this, but actually because you think there might not be much left for you. You're worried that there is not enough money for a piece of this cake." She laughed at me, a cold, hollow sound that twisted in my gut. "Oh dear, you really think we have more drama to unfold than that?" No, I think you are both being selfish. I shot back, frustration and grief mingling into a cocktail of despair inside me. Tears blurred my vision and I swallowed hard to stave off the emotion threatening to pour out. And when has it ever been about me? I've always supported both of you. You have always been mom and dad's favorites. I could feel my voice cracking, the rawness of it leaving me exposed. You both just have it all, don't you? Why not just send me away and take everything for yourselves? Well, poor Sophia, my sister said, the mocking tone simmering in her voice. You think you're so special, don't you? You've always felt so entitled to play the victim, even when you decided to leave us and start a whole new life. The knot in my chest tightened and pain rushed through me like venom. All the memories of love and laughter came crashing down like an avalanche. I didn't leave you. I left because there was nothing for me here. Stop acting like a toddler, my brother yelled back, his face flush with rage. I was stunned silent. You put yourself on a pedestal, giving yourself all this credit as if you were the only one who was ever there. Sure, you were here for a while, but let's be honest. You were gone when we needed you the most. I was working hard for my future. I shouted, fury blending with hurt, my voice trembling in the heavy air. I was trying to build something for myself so I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. I wanted, what to get what? A seat at the table. There's no table for you, he scoffed. I felt the tears pool in my eyes, anger and betrayal colliding. It wasn't even about the money or the house anymore. It was about the betrayal I felt from my own family. You will regret this, I managed to choke out, my voice breaking with anger and disbelief. You think I would let you have everything without a fight? Just then my mother intervened, stepping between us with her arms outstretched. Enough. This family shouldn't be torn apart more than it already is. We are already grieving our father's loss. It's all so fresh. Not fresh enough if you are letting them forget about me. I interrupted, stepping back, heart pounding as air felt thick and suffocating. I couldn't comprehend how they could feel so justified in their actions. Just when I thought the storm would fade, I glanced over my mother's shoulder at my brother, and his expression shifted from amusement to something darker. It was almost as if a switch flipped, his glib demeanor replaced with something less friendly, something closer to contempt. Honestly, Sophia, if you cared so much about family, you would have been here already. But you think the rest of us should just bend and cater to your last-minute guilt trip. Last minute? I repeated, my voice rising higher. You're the ones planning to visit the appraiser without even asking me, because we already know you would refuse. You're always so preoccupied with your own life, and now you want to stick your nose where it doesn't belong. You have no idea what belongs to me, what my life is like, I shouted, heart racing. Part of me wished to push deeper, to slip something sharp into the cracks of their indifference, but I knew I had to keep it together. The emotions tangled within me like the spaghetti stuck to the pot simmering in the kitchen, strong and unavoidable, but I would not let it spill over. First it was Dad's stuff, and then what? Will you plan ahead to forget me completely? I always felt like I was cut out of your lives. Silence engulfed the room, leaving only the sound of my breathing and the steady ticking of the clock, every tick feeling louder than the last. I stood there, waiting for their retorts, for the inevitable dismissal. Instead, the space felt like it distorted and warped around me, compressing the air until I felt lightheaded. Fine, my brother said, his voice low but simmering, unsettling. It sent chills prickling down my spine. Let's see how far you are willing to go to actually get what you think you deserve. The way he said it felt like a gauntlet being thrown down. I didn't want to believe it, but the tension crackled through the air. His expression was determined, a mix of arrogance and disdain that transported me back to all those times I had felt less than enough. You will regret wronging me. I won't let this happen without a fight. I don't think it's you who should be worried. Before I could process his words, he turned away, ignoring my stare as he walked out of the room. My breaths came short and ragged, suffocating beneath a mixture of betrayal and determination. My mother remained by the doorway, her hand still on my shoulder, searching my eyes for a glimpse of understanding. But I would not look away. I had finally reached a breaking point. This isn't over. Not by a long shot, I whispered, emotions swirling inside me like a storm waiting to break free. My sister rolled her eyes, dismissing my angst yet again. Realistically, I knew there was only one place to go after this. I had been pushed to a point where I could either become a shadow in my family or step into the light. The battle lines had been drawn, and I could not back down this time. As I clenched my fists, I felt a spark of defiance awaken within. I refused to let them dictate my value or my place in this family. I will not be forgotten, I vowed softly, a newfound determination rippling through me. I wasn't sure what it would take, but I would rise and claim what was rightfully mine. The door slammed behind my brother, reverberating through the house like a thunderclap. His absence filled the room with an unsettling quiet, one that echoed my resolve. I turned to face my mother, whose gaze was filled with disbelief and concern, but I felt differently now. The fire within me was awakening, flickering to life in the chaos of grief and betrayal. I would make my stand. This was only the beginning, and I would not back down. Everything was unraveling at the seams, and I had to be ready for whatever was waiting in the shadows. I could hear the clinking of forks against ceramic plates and the low hum of murmured conversations as I entered the dining room. The sheer opulence of the setting made my stomach churn. My father's new chandelier flickered with arrogance, and I could see the glint of fine silverware laid out as if it were some grand occasion, but it felt more like a courtroom than a family dinner. I hesitated at the threshold, my hands trembling slightly as I recalled the coldness in my father's eyes earlier that week. He had mocked me in front of everyone, and I could still feel the sting of those words echo in my mind. "You'll never measure up," he had sneered, his voice sharp like glass. My brother was already seated at the head of the table, casually tossing back his head in laughter as my mother filled his plate with generous portions of roast beef. It was like watching a performance rehearsed and polished. "You just have to ask, Mother, you know I can handle it," he boasted, eliciting a chorus of laughter from my sister and grandfather. I felt a sharp pain in my chest as I clutched the back of the chair, the ornate carvings biting into my fingertips. It was infuriating to see him so favored and carefree when I felt like a ghost haunting this space. "Ah, there she is." My mother noticed me, her voice laced with faux cheer. "Join us, dear, don't just stand there, it's rude." I forced a smile, swallowing the bitter taste that rose in my throat. "Yeah, sit down. We were just talking about the upcoming charity gala." My sister chimed in with an air of enthusiasm that made me want to roll my eyes. Charity gala? Was that what they were calling it now? I knew it was just another excuse for my father to flaunt his wealth and status. I took a deep breath and settled into the chair opposite my brother, who continued to regale the table with grand tales of his latest business trips, all paid for with our father's connections and wealth. "You'd love to see the hotel in Las Vegas, Sophia. It's ridiculous how luxurious everything is. I wish you could experience it firsthand." His eyes glimmered with excitement, but all I could feel was resentment bubbling underneath. "There's no need," I replied evenly, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Some of us live in the real world." The table fell silent, and I could feel the weight of their gazes on me. My brother's laughter turned to a low chuckle, and my mother's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "That's not true, Sophia. You could come if you wanted to, right, father?" I turned to my father, whose expression was unreadable, eyes buried deep in his plate as if he were searching for answers within the food. "Let her stay here," my father finally said, finally glancing at me with disdain. "She doesn't see the potential in life." My heart raced at his derision. This was always his response when I tried to carve a space for myself outside his corporate shadow. I fought to keep the anger from my voice. "I see plenty, father. I just choose to have a different vision." "Oh, come on," my brother leaned back, arms crossed smugly across his chest. "What's so wrong with wanting to enjoy life? You always act like some martyr. It is exhausting." His condescension made me freeze, and I could feel my face burn as my chest tightened. It was as if they took morbid pleasure in poking the bear, never expecting me to roar back. "Maybe someone needs to recognize what it means to be part of this family," my mother interjected, her voice rising slightly. Her gaze pierced through me. "You criticize everything we do, Sophia. Have you ever thought that maybe it is time for you to embrace our reality?" Reality. I bit the inside of my cheek, forcing myself to stay calm. They weren't hearing me, and it was driving me insane. My pulse quickened, and my hands began to shake as I gripped the table's edge. "I'm not criticizing," I began, but my sister cut me off with a bright, almost mocking smile. "You're right, Sophia, you should totally come to the gala. You might even win over father with your fantastic charm." Her laughter was indulgent and dismissive, and I felt the room tip slightly as if their laughter were pulling me under. All I wanted was to scream, to throw wine glasses against the wall and demand to be heard, but that would be too melodramatic, too cliched for them to understand. "Win over with charm," I finally snapped, my voice cracking with pent-up frustration. "What charm? You think smiles and flattery can make this family act like it does not already have a favorite?" My brother shrugged, his expression shifting from taunting to slightly defensive. "You need to learn that being liked has its advantages. You always preferred the hard way. Maybe that's why you haven't got anywhere." The silence after my words echoed through the room, heavy and oppressive. I barely dared to breathe. I could feel my chest tighten with anxiety as the heat of embarrassment flushed my cheeks. I couldn't let them see how much their words wounded me. My mother cleared her throat, an obvious attempt to regain control of the atmosphere. The clinking of silverware returned, though the laughter had gone. "Let's focus on what matters," she said, her tone strained but trying to appear placating. "The family is everything, and we have to stick together." As her words washed over me, I felt a twinge of something far more powerful than embarrassment. Anger. They all acted as if they were working toward the same family goals while I was the outsider. I studied my brother, his glazed look of total disinterest, seated like royalty at the head of the table. Beneath all that pretense of charm and success, it was obvious he didn't care about anyone other than himself. I felt a flicker of resolve. "Together?" I echoed, my voice low but dripping with venom. "Is that what you call it when you constantly put me down? When you all conspire to decide my worth through your distorted versions of love?" My father's fork clattered against the plate, his eyes practically shooting daggers. "Do not bring that tone into my house," he commanded, and the room went still like a freshly fallen snow, too pristine yet hiding the chaos beneath. My heart thudded loudly in my ears, heartbeat echoing through my body, competing with the silence that had settled. Right, because my feelings don't matter, I pressed, feeling my voice rise stubbornly. If I don't fit your idea of a perfect daughter, fine, but don't act like you care about family when the reality is you only care if I wear the right dress to the next gala. My hands trembled as I spoke, the words flowing uncontrollably like the bitterness I had held in for years. The way they looked at me, their glances holding pity and disgust, ignited something within me, a fierce need to reclaim my agency. Then my sister spoke again, her voice dripping with condescension. Sophia, you really should consider a little humility. If you spent more time being thankful and less time being bitter, you might actually enjoy life instead of sputtering in this sea of resentment. I felt as if she had thrown a glass of icy water on me. My hands were shaking with rage. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a shaky breath. They would never understand how trapped I felt, how my needs had been overshadowed by their ambitions. What a heroic little speech, sister, I shot back, my words sharper than I intended. You've got it all figured out with your perfect life and shiny facade, but let me tell you something, the more you force me to fit your mold, the more I will resist. I am done pretending. The tension in the room tightened like a noose, and for a moment I thought I could see a flicker of regret in my brother's eyes before he turned his gaze away, returning to the comfort of his lavishly piled plate. Enough of this nonsense, my father barked, his fist slamming against the table with a resounding thud. You think this can just go on forever? I've provided for this family, given you opportunities, and for what? To have you mock my support? You think your stubbornness makes you brave. How about thanking your father instead of wallowing? His words gnawed at my insides, each syllable a reminder of how underappreciated I felt. Thank you for modeling greed and favoritism. I think I'll pass. As I spat the words out, I saw my mother's expression melt into one of concern. This is not the time for this, Sophia. You need to respect your father. He is only trying to protect the legacy of this family. Legacy. That word made me want to laugh. What legacy did they give me except judgment and unrealistic expectations? I took a moment, inhaling the scent of the roast that lingered in the air, mixing bitterly with tension. Every fork found its way back to the plates, clinking like an orchestra of unease. The silence wrapped around us, thick and suffocating. My heart raced as I forced myself to stand. I'll be in my room, I said finally, turning on my heel, the weight of their stares pressing against my back. As I stormed from the dining room, I could hear the murmurs start up again, but this time they blurred into a distant sea. I slammed the door behind me, the sound reverberating like a clap of thunder that echoed through the house, shaking its very foundations. As I sat on the edge of my bed, breathing heavily, I knew one thing for certain. I would no longer let them dictate my life. This family drama had ignited an unquenchable fire in me. With clenched fists and a racing heart, I felt the stirring of a plan begin to take shape. They would see, one way or another, how their actions had consequences. I was done being the scapegoat, and I would find a way to turn the tide. The moment of reckoning was near, and I could almost taste the sweet revenge that awaited me. I stood in the living room, my heart pounding as I faced my family. The vibrant autumn leaves outside fluttered against the window, reflecting my inner turmoil. The familiar smell of roasted chicken wafted in from the kitchen, mingling with the crisp air, but it did nothing to settle my anxiety. Everyone else seemed at ease, engrossed in their conversations, but I felt like an outsider in my own home, and I was about to shatter that comfortable facade. My mother was at the head of the table, shimmering in her favorite golden sweater, oblivious to the storm brewing in the room. My father sat beside her, his wide, carefree smile annoying me more than I could express. My sister lounged on the couch, immersed in her phone, while my brother was explaining some exciting game that practically had him bouncing on his feet. For a moment, I felt a surge of resentment as I replayed my recent experiences. It was always about them, their news, their triumphs. I felt invisible. Come on, Sophia, we're waiting, my father shouted, drawing me out of my thoughts. His cheerful tone grated on me like nails on a chalkboard. You can't just stand there all day. We're about to eat. Yeah, are you just going to stand there sulking or join us? My sister added without even lifting her gaze. A wave of anger bubbled inside me, simmering just beneath the surface. I swallowed, stifling any sarcastic retort that might spill from my lips. I'm here, I finally said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I just have some things on my mind. Things? Oh, you mean that horrible job of yours? My sister snickered, and the laughter from my family echoed in the room. I could feel their eyes burning into me, gleefully reveling in my discomfort. What do you always have to twist the knife? I shot back, unable to keep the frustration at bay. Not everyone can just float through life without having to worry about their responsibilities. Calm down, Sophia, my mother chimed in, her voice as smooth as silk, but there was a sharpness behind it. You don't need to get worked up over nothing. We are family here. Family, I mirrored, the word dripping with irony. Is that what we are? Because the way I see it, you chose them over me. It came out harsher than I intended, but the fire inside me begged to be released. My chest tightened and the room fell silent. Oh please, this again. My brother's eyes rolled dramatically as he crossed his arms, a gesture so dismissive it felt like a slap. You just don't get it, do you? No one is choosing anyone here. We're all just trying to make our way, and you are the one stuck in the past. Stuck in the past. I stared at him, incredulous. You all act like I don't exist, and when I finally stand up for myself, I am the one being punished. I deserve better. Better than what? My sister interrupted, a smirk stretching across her face. Sitting in your room moping, we are all trying our best here. What do you want, a trophy or something? Maybe they can make you the queen of disappointment. That is just uncalled for, my mother said, her tone hardening as she finally shifted her attention my way. We all have our challenges, Sophia. Your life isn't any more complex than anyone else's. Oh, but it is, I burst out. How can you sit there so smug, acting like your life was perfect? You cut me off every chance you got. The silence that hung in the air was deafening in its weight. I could feel a flush rising to my cheeks as I glanced at my family, their expressions a mix of surprise and condescension. They obviously don't see how hard it is, I thought, the realization sending a chill through my core. I was tired of being the family scapegoat, tired of being mocked. Your grandfather left us a household valued at $1.5 million. I continued, my heart pounding as I leaned into the tension. And I was always pushed aside like it was never meant for me. I mean, who do you think can run a $1.5 million estate? My voice cracked mid-sentence, an involuntary tremor revealing the vulnerability I fought hard to hide. What am I supposed to do? Pretend this is not getting to me? My siblings exchanged glances, a silent conversation happening that felt like mere mockery. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, steam ready to blow out of my ears. My father's face turned a shade of red that echoed the anger I felt. That is not a fair accusation, Sophia. He got you a great job offer out of college. You turned it down, you make the choices in your life. Because none of you understood my choice, I replied, my voice firm despite the whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. It wasn't about the job, it was about feeling like I had options. Don't blame us for your failures, my brother shot back. You keep choosing the same path, following the same rut with no way to escape. Just get up and make something of yourself. There it was again, the resentment, the complete disregard for everything I had fought for. It's so simple for you to say, I said quietly, my heart racing as sadness washed over me. You haven't walked in my shoes. Every time I try, you just shut me down. You all act like everything is handed to you and I am supposed to be grateful for being left out in the cold. The room felt electric as my boldness hung heavily in the air and I saw my mother wince as if my words cut too deeply. My hands shook slightly, but I kept my chin high, forcing myself not to back down. The truth was out. It hung like an invisible chain around my neck, but maybe this time it would set me free. A silence enveloped us, thick enough that I could almost hear my heart beat. My father finally leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, and his voice turned serious. Sophia, just stop, please. We all have our share of pressure. You think the rest of us have it easy. And there it was, the dismissive undertone I had come to expect. This isn't about easy. This is about what is fair. I shot back, my heart racing with frustration. You equate money with happiness, and all I see is favoritism. You have no idea how much I actually sacrificed so I could go off and find my own way. Oh please, you wanted to be the hero in your own story, my sister chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You always make it about you, don't you? Her face twisted into a mocking grin as she attempted to turn my truth into humor. I felt a wave of anger, but it was paired with a sense of determination I had never felt before. I wasn't going to take their taunts anymore. It's not just about money, I want respect. I want to be valued, and it feels like every time I step forward you push me back. I'm your sister, why is it so hard for you to show some care for my feelings? Respect is earned, not given, my brother shot back, thumping the table aggressively. You want respect? Then put in the effort and stop whining. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. In that moment something shifted inside me. I wasn't just a victim in this family drama. I wanted more. I needed to push back, to fight for my dignity. I won't let this go. I'm tired of being the punching bag, and it is time to turn this situation around. The air felt thick, and I could see their shocked expressions forming a beautiful tapestry of confusion and contempt. They didn't expect me to fight back this way. I could see my mother's eyes narrow slightly, her grip on her silverware tightening. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. This was just the beginning of my retaliation. I'm not afraid to speak up anymore, I declared, my voice steady. If you think I'm just going to roll over and accept my position as the family disappointment, you are dead wrong. I deserve to be seen, to be part of this family, not just when it is convenient for you. Then show us you can make it worth our while, my sister spat, her composure shaking slightly now. I felt a wave of anticipation surge through me, a sense of empowerment rising like the tide. Maybe I was ready to embrace this change. If I have to prove myself to get recognized, then fine. You'll see, you may think you are the perfect family, but everyone has secrets, and some of those will soon come to light. You a little dramatic. My brother taunted, but there was an unease, a shift in how they looked at me. I knew this wouldn't end well, but I didn't care. It was no longer about avoiding confrontation. I felt my heart catch in my throat. You'll regret underestimating me, I warned, my voice lower now, almost threatening but controlled. With that, I turned and stormed out of the room, leaving behind a stunned silence. I could feel the weight of their glares bore into my back, but I marched on, determined. I could hear the silent whispers between them as I placed a hand against the edge of the door frame, pausing in the hallway for a fleeting moment before stepping fully into the unknown, prepared to uncover every hidden truth that had long been buried within my family. It was time they knew I was not the little sister they could throw aside anymore. It was time for my voice to rise above the chaos. The clang of the forks against plates was the backdrop to the thick tension hanging in the air, and I felt as if the walls of our dining room were closing in around me. My father sat at the head of the table, his stern expression as hard as the wood beneath him, while my mother was dabbing at a non-existent stain on her lap, her nervousness palpable. My brother stared out the window, pretending the world outside was more enticing than the gathering doom inside. And my sister, the favorite, sat across from me, an innocent smile on her face that made my stomach churn. "Everything looks wonderful," my sister chirped, her voice dripping with honey as if she somehow meant it. She daintily pushed a strand of hair behind her ear, and I noticed her engagement ring flashing. It was a nasty reminder of the family's favoritism, something I had felt my whole life, but I swallowed my anger. "Why don't we pray before we dig in?" my father suggested, his voice deep and commanding. Everyone nodded, and I clasped my hands together, feeling the coolness of metal privacy as I pressed my fingertips together. I tried to shut out the world as my father mumbled something about gratitude and family, his eyes flickering toward my sister as if he were asking for divine favor upon her rather than the rest of us. The thick aroma of roasted chicken wafted through the air, overlaying an undercurrent of bitterness that I couldn't shake. As the prayer ended, my mother reached for the serving dish. "Who wants some chicken?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, betraying her anxiety. She glanced at me before everyone else, a flash of concern crossing her features, and I felt my heart race. What did she expect me to do? I was not a child anymore, I could stand my ground. But the familiar sting of abandonment crept in. Why did she always look at me as if she were terrified of my reaction? "I'll pass," I said, forcing the words out. My voice cracked, but the refusal tasted right on my tongue. I watched my father's grip on the table tight, and I knew this was not what he expected from me. "Well, that's just rude," my brother muttered under his breath, clearly not caring who heard him. I could feel the heat creeping into my cheeks, but I kept my head held high, ready to confront my family's judgment. "You're ruining dinner," he added. "Oh, come on," my sister said with an airy laugh. "It's just chicken, you do not need to be dramatic. Maybe you should ask yourself why I don't want it. Or better yet, ask yourself why it seems I'm the only one in this family who isn't celebrated like some princess." I shot back, my voice rising. The tension buzzed through me like electricity, and I realized in that moment that I had finally reached my breaking point, the anger within taking form. "That is not fair," my mother said, voice rising slightly as she laid down her fork with a predictable thud. "We all love you, Sophia. You've just been difficult since the inheritance reading." Difficult. My chest tightened, balancing on my words, trying to keep my emotions in check. I went through an entire childhood of being cut off from family love, and now I'm the difficult one because I want to know why I have to step aside while my sister is showered in everything I was denied. "Just drop it, Sophia," my brother replied, the irritation in his voice evident. "You're just jealous." "Jealous? Is that all this is to you? Are you blind to how you all got everything while I was left in the shadows?" I shot back, my palms now sweating as the room began to feel stifling. "Fine, if being honest means I'm difficult, then I'll accept that title," I said, my frustration bubbling over and verbalized, fueled by years of hidden betrayal and favoritism. "But my sister has done nothing but take and take, expecting admiration for doing so, while I'm the one who gets thrown to the side without even a second thought." "That is not true," my sister gasped, her charm shattered like glass. "You always find a way to twist everything into a competition. It's exhausting. Compete." I could barely keep calm now as I stared directly into her eyes, watching the initial panic settle in her eyebrows. The competition was overstated way before I was old enough to notice. I was already being treacherously pushed aside while you flaunted your gifts. "It's not our fault you can't appreciate what you've got," she challenged, and I could hear her tone shift into that prickly defensive state that made me want to scream. "How could you call it favoritism if we work just as hard to be successful too? Right, because it's so hard to be favored, isn't it?" I could practically feel my voice rising beyond control, and I blinked rapidly, resisting the urge to scream louder, fearing the anger I felt surging upward would give way to tears. "Enough." My father's command sliced through the air like a razor. "This is not the time to argue over petty grievances." Petty grievances? My heartbeat quickened. Did he really think my pain was petty? I could see my mother glance nervously at him, her eyes full of conflict. I was tired of being viewed as the storm. I was tired of it all. "I am tired of living in whichever shadow you pin me in." I exclaimed, my voice more powerful than I had intended. My hands were now tightly clutching the table, and I was sure my knuckles had gone white. This is about more than chicken. It is about what is happening in this family. The inheritance document that you all thought you could shove under the rug. The one where you chose them over me. The one that declared me less worthy of love than my sister. What were you supposed to do? My brother challenged, folding his arms. Especially when you haven't brought recent success into the family to prove you deserve anything at all. Success, I echoed incredulously, frustration boiling inside me. Success isn't measured by dollars and cents. I can't hold on to wealth if I have been suffocated my whole life. Maybe I have just been the one who cared enough not to give up on us. That is enough, my father thundered, causing a brief silence to engulf the room as we all froze. You have no idea what I've sacrificed for this family. Neither do you, I shot back. You demonstrate love toward a few while totally ignoring the others. Look where that got you, my mother sighed, and I saw her remove her handkerchief, dabbing her eyes as if fighting back tears. Perhaps my words had cut too deeply once again. I didn't mean to hurt her, at least not in this moment. The tension in my chest was overwhelming, a visceral fear bubbling up because I could not continue like this anymore. I have tried my best with what I was given, I continued quietly, my voice now a whisper. But I am not going to be silent while you toss around the idea of love like it is a game you can win. You will be cut off from this family for good if you insist on this path. My father threw back at me, his voice steady yet dangerously calm. Maybe I would prefer being cut off, I shouted, my heart racing. At least then I wouldn't feel like a ghost in my own home. The silence that settled was like a body at rest, the air growing thick with unspoken tensions. My sister's face bathed in disbelief, my brother's arms now unfolded but his expression contorted in confusion, while my mother sniffed harshly, still dabbing her eyes with the tissue. I can't do this any longer, I finally managed, my voice low and steady, feeling the weight of the world settle on my shoulders. This family is broken, and until we confront that fact, I am not even sure we're truly related. The resentment is boiling over, and you all act as if it were nothing. But I refuse to be your scapegoat any longer. I will take what is mine, and I will not let you keep me from it, even if I must fight for it. I stood from the table, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor, the rough edge of the wood biting into my emotions. The sheer weight of what I had said hung in the air like a lead balloon, the silence more suffocating than a storm brewing overhead. I felt my mother's eyes on me, filled with unvoiced sorrow, and my father's glare was like daggers into my flesh. As I turned to leave, I heard sobs break free from my mother, the sound echoing in the sudden stillness behind me. But before I could step outside, I turned back, my heart racing. You may think I am the one walking away, but trust me, you will wish you had listened. This is just a small taste of what is to come. I will not be treated like this, and I will reclaim my worth. With that, I slammed the door behind me, the sound reverberating through the house. I stood in the hallway, trying to catch my breath, my hands shaking with the adrenaline pulsing through me. I had poured everything out on the table, every ounce of anger, every feeling of betrayal, and now my heart raced with uncertainty and power. I had taken my stand, but I knew this was just the beginning. The screech of the door echoed through the empty house, leaving behind a stunned silence once again filled with tension.